Hey guys, last presentation, hybrid, hybrid electrics. Honestly, I got to teach you just some very simple stuff about how to be safer on hybrids. I think they're going to be, more commonplace in your future. I mean, I'll be retiring before these things really hit mainstream, but I mean, there's an awful lot of like Priuses and hybrids coming out and going in, and the manufacturing a lot more of them, and I don't see this changing. Is this going to change us? Well, yeah, a little bit. We're going to have to learn how to deal with some hybrid stuff, which, you know, uh, honestly, it's electrical. So it really doesn't bother me. It shouldn't bother you guys. There are some precautions that I'd like to cover. But honestly, if you're going to work on these, you're going to need a lot more training than what I can give you in the next 20 minutes. So realize this is going to be a learning a lifelong learning thing. You guys are probably going to get a lot better at it than I am. I'm first gen Prius master trained, but geez, that's 10 years ago. They've changed a lot since then. So, all right, yeah, let's rock. We have different types of hybrids. We have the simple idle stops that, like GM trucks. They're calling this a hybrid, where it basically just shuts off at a stoplight. Some of these guys are, several 12 volts. They're, 30 volts, 36 volts, something like that. Uh, we do need to be careful because a lot of these guys can start at any time. I'll pick on first gen GM trucks. If it's in idle stop mode and you open the door, it'll start at that point. So we do need to be careful with these idle stop hybrids, they're calling them. And then we can also have like regular full hybrids where the ICE engine will just turn off. I mean, there's no good way to tell, you know? I mean, they can start at any time, even when so a lot of these don't even have a key for the ignition. If the key is just near the car, it can start. So we do need to be careful and watch out. We have uh, Power Assist, which is Honda's version. It helps with fuel economy, and they use a smaller and less horsepower gasoline and ICE and internal combustion engine, and they assist it with you know uh, uh, electric motors, which build torque very quickly. They have large high voltage battery packs. Typically, these things are around 300 volts. They use regenerative braking. Uh, and some of the newer hybrids, they can be jump started. Back in the day, they could not, if the high voltage battery pack went bad, there was no way to save them, or you needed a very expensive manufacturer only battery pack in several hours to do it. But that's no longer the case. We can now jump start them, kind of. And once we get the internal combustion engine running, we can charge up the main generators, can charge the big battery packs. We have full electric mode also. Nissan Leafs, uh, no internal combustion engine. I honestly, people think that this is like a new technology, but some of the very first vehicles, commercial vehicles, were all electric with big flooded acid batteries. Uh, anyways, some of the safety things we do have to watch for is watch the orange cables. Most of these high voltage cables are in an orange jacket, or some of the slightly lower voltage, like 30, 40 volts, are in a blue jacket to let you know that, be careful around this line. These are coaxial lines too, which means there's a high voltage center section, and then there's a ground braid that goes around the outside for safety. So, and these cables are extremely expensive, so we don't want to damage them. Now, I will say some of these orange cables are covered in black tape, or they're covered in a black cover. So we do need to be aware that they may not all be completely orange. We need to watch out for them. One of the places where these high voltage cables pass I'll pick on Priuses and like the Toyota hybrids. The passenger side rear seat is a hot corner, literally right below the seat. You could dig your finger in between the back of the seat and the bottom of the seat, and you could touch the housing that's on that's around the high voltage cable. So care must be used inside the car and outside the car. We can look on the back a lot of times, but sometimes they don't say hybrid, they don't say electrical, they say blue drive, or, they just, have a little leaf on them to let you know that it's a hybrid. So we do need to pay attention to these guys. Uh, Servicing, as long as we're careful, we're still if it has an internal combustion engine, it's still going to need an oil change, the same care, and lifting and the high voltage cables underneath. We watch out for those. Make sure you're using the right specified oil viscosity, and most of those things are similar, But again, consult your service manuals. Now, we can also service like cooling systems, but realize that they may have more than one cooling system. I'll pick on the Priuses again, the Toyota hybrids. They run two separate cooling systems, one for the ICE and another one for the inverter, for the high voltage electronic stuff, which takes it's two separate cooling systems. And oh, by the way, they take two different coolants. They're not the same coolant. All right. Most vehicles, suspension and brakes, although with the regenerative braking, they're pretty easy on the mechanical brake systems. The suspension systems are the same. Tires, hybrid tires are different. Usually they're filled to a higher pressure, not 32 psi. A lot of them still have a 12-volt battery to run the accessories of lights and radio and that kind of stuff, and allow you to charge your phone. Those are going to need to be serviced. But, we have some service procedures that are specific to hybrids that we do have to watch for. One of them is the lubricant used in the AC systems. It's a special hybrid lubricant on a lot of the vehicles. That's because they're using a high voltage compressor to run the air conditioning. It's not belt driven. It's 140 volts. So they have a special, oil lubricant for this compressor, and you can't use a standard AC machine. It has to be a dedicated hybrid only AC machine. You really got to be careful. Some of the high voltage components, we have, the battery pack, we have uh, uh, most of these things we can disable the high voltage just by removing the key. Sometimes if we have to service it, there are some special considerations for uh, uh, disabling the high voltage battery pack. Usually it involves around removing the battery, the 12-volt battery, disconnecting that, or pulling a specific fuse or two. And then there's a big plug on the battery pack, to disable, and all of the voltage just remains inside the battery pack. But if you're going there, you should have some training and read the service manual on exactly what's required. Remember, you only get one time to do it wrong, and then you could hurt yourself or the vehicle. If we're going to be measuring the high voltage leads, the high voltage voltages, specific meter leads and specific meters are needed. It's called a Cat 3, category 3. It's good to like 1,000 volts. There's special high insulated tools. Again, if you're inside the battery pack working on it, yeah, you're probably going to need these, but very specialized stuff. Uh, you know, watch the the orange cables underneath. Uh, might have to wear high voltage gloves if you have to touch some of the high voltage circuits with the high voltage on. They have special rubber gloves. They're date stamped. You're not supposed to use them past the date stamp. They're good for a year. They got to be retested. You test them, visual inspection, look for holes. You shouldn't have any grease or dirt on them because that can conduct, and that's bad for the rubber. One of the ways we check for pinhole leaks is kind of roll it up and see if it holds. If it doesn't hold, well, then they're bad. You cut the fingertips off and throw them away. We also have these leather over gloves. They're not work gloves. So, grease and oil is bad for them. They should be clean. So if you're going to use them, it's rubber glove and then the leather over glove in order to get anywhere near an exposed high voltage circuit. It's DC. This stuff will grab a hold of you and stop your heart. Okay? That's really about it. So here, thanks for playing.